What's good, y'all? It's Drew here, back with another video. Alright, today I'm going to be talking about One Piece and its case for GOAT. Real quick before we start the video, I just want to let you guys know that once I hit 400 subs, I'm going to be having a Q&A live stream. So if you have any questions, anything like that you want to ask me, just get ready to get that prepared, because I'm like 374 or something like that right now. So I'm preparing for it. We're gonna start with question of the day. Question of the day is, what moment made you fall in love with One Piece? One Piece is obviously a huge, expansive series. It's going on 25 years now. So obviously my moment's probably gonna be different than your moment and vice versa. For me, the moment when I seen One Piece and I was like, oh yeah, this series is it, it's gotta be when Luffy gives Nami his hat. Because obviously I can talk about that real quick, but we know what Luffy's straw hat meant to him because we'd seen the episodes with Shanks, we'd seen everything. We knew what it meant to him, and up until that point, no one had so much as pretty much touched Luffy's straw hat for the most part. So for Luffy to put his hat on Nami's head, everyone in the entire audience knew that was basically synonymous with saying, you're my treasure, like, don't worry, I got this. And then right after that, Luffy's like, let's go, and you see Usopp, Sanji, and Zoro, and they're ready to turn up. So to me, that was basically a glimpse of the series. Obviously, let me know what your favorite moment was down below. Good old One Piece. You obviously knew this was going to come eventually, right? With the Case for GOAT series, me talking about Naruto and then Avatar. You knew that One Piece was going to be one of the ones I talked about. One Piece is like I said, 20-year-old series, and it has a lot of hype moments, a lot of great things about it. But I have to, pinpoint the things. So the first thing I want to talk about One Piece related is just the overall characters. When we're talking about anime series or just series in general, the characters are gonna have to be somewhat compelling, especially when you have a series like One Piece as long as it is. Like if you find almost all the characters boring or annoying, you're not gonna stick around 1,000 chapters. That's just not gonna happen. With One Piece, it seems like Oda took his time with every single character. Every character has, they have a different backstory, obviously. I'll get to that a little bit later. They have different characteristics. Luffy don't look like Usopp. Usopp don't look like Zoro, stuff like that. Even down to their laughs. Like, if you look at the laughs of most of the main antagonists of One Piece, they have different laughs. If you look at Blackbeard's laugh, it's completely different from Crocodile's laugh. Like, just the way they laugh it's so distinct. It makes each person feel like a different character, which, that's what you're striving to do. Because they're so distant and unique, everyone will have a favorite character. So, my favorite character is actually Sabo, but for a long time it was Ace. And Ace and Sabo act very, very differently throughout childhood and to adulthood. And when you look at, like, for instance, my little brother, his favorite character is Doflamingo. Now, Doflamingo is a very diverse character because I've heard people that say they hate Doflamingo, and I've heard people that say they love Doflamingo. Like, it's literally that much of a chain, because in One Piece, one thing I really, really love about One Piece is that there's really no good and evil. Like, there are characters that we would say are evil, right? Like, I'd say Blackbeard's evil. Like, he's genuinely evil. But if you look at even Blackbeard, is he really evil, or is he a pirate? Like, that's something that One Piece pretty much touches upon since day one. We see Luffy, and even someone like Luffy, who you might say he has to be good. Like, he's the antithesis of a good character. He's like the definition of a good character in One Piece. Luffy has said multiple times, I'm not a hero. Luffy does things that are good things, for sure. He does heroic things. But if you look at Luffy really only steps in to solve a problem when it directly affects his friends. So the world government, Luffy knew they were doing some crazy stuff, but he never went out of his way to fix it until it affected his friends. When it messed up with Hachi, then Luffy wanted to turn up and punch a Socio Dragon. Before then, it was not really his problem. So when you have a moral system like that, where you can really decide who's good and who's evil, it makes every character, I want to say, somewhat likable, or the potential to be likable. I was a huge Ace fan for a long time. He was my favorite character. So if Ace is my favorite character, then who do I dislike the most? Akainu. I was not messing with him at all. But even Akainu's not evil. It really depends on perspective. Are you going to say Akainu's inherently evil? Well, technically, the Marines are actually the good guys in the series. The pirates are the bad guys. It's not as black and white as some other series. Like, I talked about Avatar probably a couple days ago now. Ozai, one thing that Avatar did was they made Ozai a completely unredeemable character. That was on purpose. Ozai was supposed to signify pure evil, and Aang was supposed to signify pure good. In One Piece, that's not necessarily the same thing. In One Piece, they don't really do that as much. Like, for anyone who's caught up on the manga right now, obviously spoilers, so I'll give you about 3 or so seconds. So, yeah. Anyone who's caught up on the manga, Luffy's teamed up with Kid, and from what we've heard of Kid's description, Kid attacks good people. He attacks people who aren't involved in things. He's really like a normal pirate in the traditional sense. He loots and stuff like that. But Luffy's working with him. So technically, are you going to say Luffy's working with a quote-unquote evil character? It's a lot more gray. And because One Piece doesn't really have, I want to say, good or bad, like, inherent characters, like, by the definition, it really allows a lot of analysis. Because then you have videos on the internet, like, about Blackbeard. I watched a video about, was Blackbeard really evil? Or did the things he did, were they really evil? Or was he just a pirate? It's really, really interesting. One thing I touched upon a little bit in my Yonko video, if you check that out, it was about perceptions. And I think that One Piece is really, really big on perceptions. Perfect example is someone like Roger. From all intents and purposes, all the people that have met Roger and actually knew him, even people that were against him described him as a good-natured man. Garp never really had anything bad to say about Roger besides the fact that he was a pirate. You have someone like Akainu, who we probably didn't meet him, but even knowing the lore of Roger's, was even impressed by him, had some good things to say about Roger. But when you look at people that didn't know him, maybe looking at the people, like for instance, the people that Ace was talking to in the bar when he was a little kid, they described Roger as a demon. When you're talking about characters, there's a really important thing with characters. You can thoroughly flesh them out as much as you want, but part of fleshing out characters is backstories. And when we're talking about backstories, I don't know if a series does it better than One Piece, honestly. The best example of backstories to me in One Piece is always Senior Pink. Because coming into Dressrosa, Senior Pink was a character whose backstory you did not expect. Because of how quirky, I want to say, One Piece designs are, especially character designs, when a character looks weird, you don't necessarily think too much about it, right? Like when you're looking at someone like Buggy the Clown. We never got a reason why Buggy the Clown, like, is a clown. Like, why are you a clown in the pirate world? That was never something that we just needed to know. Most of the audience just saw that and thought, okay, so he's a clown. That is knowledge. We will move on forward. And the same thing kind of we assume would happen with Senior Pink. Okay, this guy, he's a part of Dofi's crew. That's fine. He looked goofy, but I mean, charge up to the game. But when we get his backstory and they flesh out the reason why he's wearing the baby clothing and all that stuff, it really hits home how crazy, in-depth One Piece backstories go. One thing about One Piece backstories is they usually will tie into something important. So someone like Koala. Koala was involved in Fisher Tiger's backstory, and she seemed like a random character who we would probably never see again, but we later find out she's a part of the Revolutionary Army. Like, these things tie in. One thing that backstories usually need is some sort of emotional connect. Like, if you don't connect with a backstory and it's just like you're just getting fed information, it's not doing nothing for you. But One Piece backstories, they hit it close to home. Like, that's just honestly. One Piece has some of the wildest backstories ever, right? Look at Law and Robin. Two characters who are, I want to say, relatively stoic. When you look at their backstory, you can kind of get a reason why. Robin is someone who basically was seen as a demon child, and because of that, she basically never met true friends. And also, she was constantly hunted by the government up until when we saw her. When you contrast that character's backstory and where they are now, it makes a lot of sense. It adds into making the characters feel very, very realistic. Backstories usually tend together. Look at Frankie's backstory. Frankie's backstory involves, for the most part, I'll give you a little quick rundown. Frankie made some ships, and those ships, they got into the wrong hands and they caused a lot of destruction. And he wanted to disown those ships and saying, oh, it's my fault they're made. Like, these things are evil. And Tom punches him for the first and only time ever he hit him. And Tom was like, they're not inherently good or bad. It's up to the user to decide that. Lesson lent towards Robin because Robin was seen as a weapon. Frankie's takeaway was, it is not a crime to live. You are not inherently good or evil. It is up to you to make those choices. The backstories always held value, and they also helped diversify the character. So the best backstory to diversify a character, in my opinion, is Doflamingo. Donquixote Doflamingo was one of the most evil, evil, obviously the terms used loosely, obviously, but one of the most evil characters in the series. His main intro to us in the series was when he was using his Devil Fruit powers on Bellamy, and his reasoning, he was having Bellamy fight his subordinate, and his reasoning for that was that he dishonored that flag. And right away we knew this guy Doflamingo was, he's something, whether it's sadistic or whatever. And we knew he was kind of, he maybe a screw was missing or something, because you have Marineford, and this is probably one of the most amped up, we're talking about fight or flight. Your emotions should be raw. You should be very, very serious in this battle. And there were a few people that were not serious in the battle, and Doflamingo was one of those people. Throughout the entire war, Doflamingo was just laughing it off. Doflamingo, he seemed like he didn't care about anything going on. He was just some crazy lunatic. We get his backstory, and we find out that Doflamingo was a celestial dragon. Not only was he a celestial dragon, but he basically fell from Earth, kind of like an angel losing their wings. And because of him being a celestial dragon from a young age, experiencing that level of treatment, getting the type of ego a celestial dragon will tend to have, and then having that stripped away, oh yeah, it messed with Dofi for sure. At the end of the flashback, we find out why Dofi does what he does. And even after that, we're like, bro, you're still a bad guy. Like, One Piece didn't do that thing that some anime try to do where they pander with the character. Like, they'll say, oh, this character he was dealt a bad hand. Like, Dofi was dealt a bad hand. But the series does not tell you, oh, forgive Dofi. They're like, no. Dofi was dealt a bad hand. And he still messed up a lot of crap. He's still, like, a bad guy. Because of that diversity that One Piece had, Doflamingo is still a lot of people's favorite characters. And people don't shy away from that. Because Dofi, he's a really good character. Like, regardless of his moral high ground or moral standing. One thing that One Piece does, I want to say the best out of any series again, is hype moments or hype scenes. So I'm going to talk about a hype moment that is not related to Marineford or Whitebeard. And the main reason I'm going to do that is because there's a lot to go around. So I don't need to keep on talking about that same hype moment, which we all know is hype. And I'm going to talk about the 2-year time skip. Now, I've talked about Marineford, and you can kind of get a gist of what was happening at that time and how utterly defeated the Straw Hats in general, specifically Luffy, felt. When Rayleigh offered to train Luffy for 2 years and Luffy took that opportunity, we knew that Luffy and the Straw Hats were going to come back crazy tough. But we didn't really know how crazy tough. So when we're looking at a hype moment, one of the hypest moments in the series, Luffy dropping off that first PX9. It was super hype because of what? Because of the build-up. We saw pre-time skip, the Straw Hats, they gave everything they could to take out one PX9, and it drained them completely. So to see Luffy one-shot one, and then Zoro and Sanji one-shot one, with those two doing it together, we got a glimpse to see the difference in how much more powerful they were. Another important hype moment that kind of lends to that is when Rayleigh reminisces on Roger, and he says that Luffy is becoming the man worthy enough to wear that hat. When we're talking about Gold Roger and who Gold Roger is, everyone knows who Gold Roger is. I don't need to break it down. So for us to find out that who that hat originally belonged to, and to see Luffy following what we can assume is a path similar to Roger, oh yeah, we're hype. One Piece knows how to play with your emotions. When One Piece wants to make you sad, it'll make you sad. One Piece had people crying over boats. One Piece did that. People were crying over boats. People still probably cry over boats because of One Piece. When we're talking about how to make the audience feel a certain type of way, One Piece can do that. Whether if you want to feel sad, look at that Ace speech with Luffy. That's a sad moment. Look at that Whitebeard speech. You want a really hype moment, look at when Luffy first brings out Gear 2, or when he first brings out Gear 4, or if you're in the manga or manga only, one of the hypest moments in the series, probably to this date, in my opinion, you can pick a couple things in Wano. You have when Luffy first hits Kaido and actually calls him to drop out blood, and Luffy says, I'm gonna be the king of the pirates. That's such a crazy moment, despite the fact that we've heard Luffy declare he's gonna be the king of the pirates probably 1,001 times at this point. Even though he said that so many times, it held so much worth because we knew what Luffy had done to get to this point. You can look at Luffy now, like the latest chapter, spoiler alert obviously. Luffy using this new form of conquerors to block Kaido, and Luffy basically declaring that he's got this. People are calling Luffy top 5, top 10 now in the series. And while I don't necessarily agree, it's just the fact that we see how far Luffy's come. For him to be looking eye to eye with the Yonko, and he thinks he's capable of handling one-on-one, that's amazing. Like, it's just looking at how far the series has come. The last example I'm gonna give you in terms of just hype moments or a hype scene is Zoro basically sacrificing himself for Luffy. We knew how close the Straw Hats were and how close of a team they were, but actions speak louder than words. And we've seen the Straw Hats do actions like, for instance, Luffy giving Nami his hat. But when we're talking about hype scenes and we're just talking about overall emotion, seeing not just Zoro but also Sanji both bow their head and give their life for Luffy in order for him to live. And the scene before that, when the whole Straw Hats are prepared to die for Luffy, like Kuma says, all you have to do is give up Luffy, like just give up your captain's head and that's it. And Zoro's like, bro, give up my captain's head, bro. What kind of pirate crew would do that? And they just turn up? Like, that's just an amazing scene. Like, go back and watch it. That's a really, really great scene. That's probably, honestly, the best moment in the series. Now, One Piece is a really expansive series, and I could try to tackle it all by myself and tell you its cases for GOAT, but I figured that this way would be a little better. Without further ado, I have someone help me on this video that you probably know if you watch my channel. I talked about him a couple times now, and that's Rob from Shonen Showdown. So, obviously, check out his channel if you haven't already. But without further ado, I mean, Rob's just gonna explain some stuff that I might have missed out on. So we're gonna get on that.
What's going on? It's Rob from Shonen Showdown. Shout out to my guy Drew over at CA Analysis for allowing me to talk about why One Piece is the greatest of all time, or at least give its case. Now, when we talk about world building, I mean, that is the greatest factor that One Piece has. It's the greatest argument you can make for why it is the greatest of all time when it comes to all anime. World building is essential when it comes to One Piece. We can talk about the various different races that are within the One Piece universe. You have the Long Arm Tribe, you have the Minks, you have the Fishmen, you have the Giants, Tontatas. I mean, you have all different shapes and sizes of humans and non-humans. It's incredible what Oda has been able to show us. But that's not all when it comes to the world, because there are also different factions. You have the world government, which is comprised of the Marines. So you have your fleet admirals, all of the other admirals, vice admirals, rear admirals, but you also have Cypher Pole, which is kind of your secret service. Then you also have the Gorosei, the 5 elders that are overlooking the entire One Piece world and pulling strings. And then lastly, you have Imu, which we don't really know too much about Imu right now, but we do know that the world is in the palm of Imu's hands as we speak. Now, when we speak about the different races throughout the One Piece universe, we also have to talk about their regions and where they come from. For example, the Fishman Island is underwater. So this means that any ships that are from the surface that have to go down to Fishman Island underwater have to get their ship coded. So that means they have to make a trip to Subodi, which is that famous bubble island where we got to see Luffy pretty much challenge the Celestial Dragon. Now, you notice how I just brought up the Celestial Dragon. That is also another part of the world that we are still trying to figure out, because they rule the world from the Holy Land. They have so much control, they have so much power, but we don't really even know why. Now, the world of One Piece is broken up into 4 big regions. You have the East Blue, South Blue, North Blue, West Blue. But when we speak about these 4 regions, we have to speak about the meat in the middle, the epicenter. We have to talk about the Grand Line and how the Grand Line is pretty much that next step for pirates that are trying to reach the One Piece. But even bringing up the Grand Line, we have to talk about the New World, because the New World is the next step. That is where all the top tier pirates lie, all the top tier enemies, because that is when you're reaching the closest to that last final island. This is when your log poses are pretty much going haywire. It's insane. But the biggest factor when it comes to the world of One Piece is that it is a living, breathing world. Essentially, when we talk about One Piece, anything that is happening in the present day is not the only thing that we see throughout the show. We can watch the Straw Hats going through present day activities, and while we are seeing this, we can see a newspaper falling from the sky from Morgan's that is always giving us updates on what is going on throughout the world. So we always get to see the whole scope of the One Piece world moving, while the Straw Hats are also on their quest to find the One Piece. We know about the Yonko making moves, we know about what the Gorosei is thinking and how the Marines are making plans. We know everything, and Oda's ability to keep the world living and breathing is why its world is top tier. The world building in One Piece is elite. Now, when we speak about the fights in One Piece, most anime like to go straight to the choreography. How great is the boxing? How great is the hand-to-hand combat in the fights? That is what most anime watchers rank how great a fight is. But One Piece has a different type of strength when it comes to fights. It is not only the physical combat, but the fights in One Piece actually begin way before the first punch or kick is thrown. This is what a lot of people have to understand about One Piece. The build up to the fight carries much more weight than a punch or a kick being thrown. when it's done correctly. And we see multiple examples of this. We can even speak about Luffy talking to Big Mom on the Den Den Mushi after he just picked up Fishman Island as his new territory, and he was telling her pretty much that I'm coming for you next. It's your time. Your time has come, Big Mom. That built up that much energy and anger that we've seen from Big Mom, so that once Luffy reached Whole Cake Island, we knew what type of time he was on. We knew what we were going to expect, and we got nothing but top tier battles because the build up was essential. This is where One Piece excels. It excels into the build up of the fights, the build up into the Marineford War, and how Ace was pretty much taken away, and now we have to watch as Whitebeard tries to retrieve him. But if we want to talk about strictly the physical combat of the fights, we can do that. But first, I'm going to have to talk about the Devil Fruits and how there's so much creativity in the Devil Fruits. You have Mythical Zoan types, you have Paramecia types, you have Logia types. All these different Devil Fruit types give you different types of abilities. Whether you can transform into an animal or a beast type fighter, you have the ability to actually turn your body into an actual element. You can change and have different types of abilities and different types of properties of things. It's insane what type of creativity you have with these three types of Devil Fruit powers. But not only that, you can even dial in the fact that these Devil Fruits have an awakening ability, which means there's an even higher step than where most Devil Fruit users are right now, currently in One Piece. But then there's also another type of technique. The technique known as Haki. Haki gives users that don't have Devil Fruits, or have Devil Fruits, an edge, where they use their will to have an extra power. This power is used in the form of attack power, defense power, visual power. It's insane. You have Armament Haki, which you can use for attack and defense. It allows you to land hits on Logia users who normally can't be touched by normal attacks. You have Observation Haki, which boosts your sensory skills. But not only that, if you are able to enhance it, you can now see slightly into the future. And then you also have Conquerors Haki, which is only given to the most elite of the elite in One Piece. And this gives you that extra edge. This is Haki. With a combination of Devil Fruits and Haki, One Piece has made one of the most unique battle systems throughout any anime period, because there is a counter to Devil Fruit users in Haki, but Devil Fruit users can also use Haki. So essentially what I'm saying is that there are levels to this, so we get some insane fights and insane battles.
One Piece is one of the best series of all time, and I'm not, like, again, this series is not to tell you which anime I think is the GOAT or not. But when you're talking about influential anime and just things like that, One Piece is up there for sure. I told you a lot of good things about One Piece, but One Piece is not a perfect anime or a perfect manga, so I have to talk about the things that it doesn't do well. One thing that One Piece does particularly not well is the pacing at times. Like, I've talked about this a couple times now. Long-running anime tend to have this problem because they run for so long that there are bound to be chunks or pieces in the series in which the pacing's a little off. And I think the anime really struggles with that mostly. The manga, it doesn't necessarily struggle with it as much, but I mean, we're talking about the anime. And obviously with One Piece, there are arcs that just tend to drag on. Like, look at Dressrosa. Dressrosa at times tend to drag on. Like, if you look at the beginning, especially with like the stadium or with the tournament arc and all that stuff, it was dragging a little bit. It was definitely a little slow. Look at an arc like Thriller Bark. I think Thriller Bark is one of the more weaker arcs, mostly because it doesn't tackle anything super expansive. Like Fishman Island, it has the whole stuff with Shirahoshi and stuff. But looking at Thriller Bark, it didn't really have that. So Thriller Bark really dragged itself on, I thought. But obviously, there's some stuff at the end that saved it, but overall, the pacing was a little off. One Piece has moments like that for sure. When you're looking at the first couple, I want to say 50 or so episodes of One Piece, it's probably not argued that One Piece starts out a little slower than if you're looking at like Bleach or Naruto. Because you look at Naruto, first couple episodes we're in the Zabuza, and you look at Bleach, Ichigo is doing some crazy stuff in the first couple episodes. And One Piece, it's a little bit slower. So if we're talking about pacing and overall stuff like that, when One Piece gets good, it gets good, obviously, but there are times that One Piece is a little slow, and you have to admit that. This is a complaint more for time skip than pre-time skip, but time skip has, unfortunately, not characterized his characters as much as pre-time skip. Like, when you look at characters like Robin, or look at characters like Frankie, they haven't done nearly as much time skip as they did pre-time skip. Like, Robin not having a fight since Skypiea, that's kind of crazy, considering how many arcs have passed since Skypiea. So that's stuff that you have to just look at. Like, that's not great. One Piece does a really good job with juggling all the characters, but sometimes some characters tend to fall through the cracks. Like Smoker. Smoker was someone who we thought was supposed to be one of Luffy's rivals, or people that was going to grow with Luffy similar to how Garp did. But he kind of just stopped doing that after Alabasta. Once we got to Alabasta, it seemed like Smoker was just like, I'm going to stop training or something. Like, Smoker is just not that nice anymore. We see him in Punk Hazard, and he's just not a threat to Luffy. Like, Luffy's just not worried about Smoker anymore. Another issue that I think should be brought up, sometimes Oda has some of these really great ideas, but he doesn't flesh it out as much as he wants, or as much as he could have. Like, for instance, when you look at the World's Greatest Swordsman title, that is a title that everyone has in their mind just because of how influential it is for Zoro and how influential it is for Mihawk. But when you look at the World's Greatest Swordsman and look at the whole series, despite how many characters have been brought up and how many chapters have passed, we don't know that many characters that are trying to be the World's Greatest Swordsman. In fact, besides Zoro, we really haven't seen any. Despite all the characters we've seen, like, you mean to tell us that throughout the entire series we have not met a character that wants to be the World's Greatest Swordsman besides Zoro? It makes it seem like Zoro's the only one who's going to get the title. Like, if there's no competition, it doesn't make it as interesting. Like, can we that's something that people have complained about. Like, can we get a character that wants to be the World's Greatest Swordsman? Or maybe get a character that wanted to be the World's Greatest Swordsman but got beat by Mihawk? That also blends well with us not seeing a lot of swordsmen or people like that. Like, we really haven't seen specific straight swordsmen pretty much ever in the series. Especially people that have, like, battled Zoro. We know that Fuji's a swordsman, right? But besides that, I mean, Mr. One, he's not a swordsman. He specifically said he wasn't. He uses blades. Kaku, he's not a swordsman either, but he uses swords. Like, we haven't seen people that are swordsmen. And I feel like if you wanted Zoro's path to being the world's strongest swordsman to be really good, you have more swordsmen for him to beat. Or give him a rival or something. And that'll lend itself also to Luffy and his goal of being the Pirate King. Because at times I've heard complaints, and I've had complaints myself, about how Luffy's goal of being the Pirate King, it seems like no one's really in the way of it. Besides Blackbeard, who obviously Blackbeard does what Blackbeard does. Besides him, there aren't really any people that you could say are really competing with Luffy to be the Pirate King and not get laughed at. Like, if you want to say Kaido and Big Mom are contending for the Pirate King title, sure. But honestly, up until I want to say like maybe Whole Cake Island, I feel like throughout the series, it didn't seem like they were really hunting for that title. We know Kid kind of wants to be the Pirate King, but that's really it. Like, the whole Worst Generation idea, they were supposed to be these rivals to Luffy, and they didn't all have to be people searching to be the Pirate King. They didn't have to have that, but the whole purpose of them was to be, they were supposed to be people that pushed Luffy, and none of them have pushed them. People call Law Luffy's subordinate all the time. You look at Beige not scaring no one. Hawkins? Who's Hawk? Like, his characters are not threatening to Luffy's status of Pirate King. Like, as it was currently going, or as it's currently going as of right now, Luffy not worried about any of these guys but Blackbeard. And that's unfortunate because these characters, they're all unique, so it would make more sense to make them more valuable. Now, I still personally think that Kid is gonna be one of the people contending for the Pirate King title, but even I don't think that Kid's really gonna become the Pirate King. I do think he's around Luffy's strength, but he's not like pushing to be the Pirate King. You know what I mean? Like, it's not ongoing. It was not like Naruto and Sasuke towards the end where they're competing for who's gonna be Hokage and stuff. That tension's just not there, and that is something that One Piece does not do really well. Honestly, like, we have to just talk about that. And the last con I have to tackle is off-screening and stuff like that. This goes into Oda sometimes being a little too anxious to get to parts or too anxious to hype things up. Sometimes Oda will hype up moments in like an arc or something, like, for instance, Akainu versus Aokiji. He'll hype it up, and when it gets time or a good place to show it, he'll just off-screen it. Like, it was getting to the point in Wano where he was just off-screening things left and right. Like, Whitebeard and Roger, he just off-screened it. It's like, bro, that's a pretty good opportunity to show that battle, but we just got off-screen. Or Marco versus Blackbeard, that's probably one of the best fights we're gonna see, off-screen. I love the Ace and Blackbeard fight, like, that's one of my favorite fights. It still got off-screen. So Oda sometimes gets a little off-screen happy where he's just like, all right, I'm gonna hype it up and not have the payoff. And one thing that I think Oda kind of struggles with is that if you hype up things, and there's no payoff, eventually when you try to hype it up, it won't work anymore. Like, you can only hype up things for so long if you don't, have them pay off. And that's something that Oda definitely struggles with even now. There's a lot of times that Oda will show things and it's just, he'll hype it up and it hasn't happened yet. Just little moments like that. And honestly, I mean, those are some things. Whether you think those are big issues or small issues is up to you, obviously, but those are the facts. And that's just honestly the series of One Piece overall. Check out Shonen Showdown's channel, obviously, if you haven't already. It was a big help for him helping me make this video. This is my first collab ever, but just let me know what you guys think about the video down below. But I'm out, so peace.